Hello again, everyone. This week's material deals with music from the medieval and Renaissance periods of European history, a period that covers about 1500 years. The text is pretty explanatory about this. I don't want to repeat too much information from there. I do want to make sure that you're aware of the fact that human existence during this long time period went from being a manner of barely getting by, subsistence living, to a time in which people were much more self-determined. The church was a dominant influence in people's lives. The Roman Catholic Church, throughout much of this time period, they had music during their worship services, the Mass, in the form of chants. And the chants were sung in monophony, in other words, just melody, and only sung by men. There were very strict rules about how music was to be performed during these services, and those rules changed very little over very long time periods. I've added a couple short pieces to the notes that go along with the link to this video that I just emailed to you to help you understand how the church very gradually allowed more and more to happen in music as time went by. After hundreds and hundreds of years, they agreed to add a second line of notes, and then gradually a third line of notes. You will hear that very clearly if you listen to the O Solis Ortus Cardine. I've put in the timings where it goes from being monophony to having the addition of a second and then a third line of notes. Now, the significant thing about all this is that the intervals, the distances between the pitches that you hear sung in this piece of music are 4 and 5 steps apart. So I want to take a few minutes to explain to you a little bit about the basic physics of pitch. All right. If I play this note and this note, the speed of vibration of this note, which is 1 octave higher, 8 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These notes have a very basic physical relationship to one another in terms of the vibrating speed. The top note, the speed of vibration is twice as fast as the bottom. So, if I go up another octave, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, we need to have a 3. And there it is. All right? So now, just as the first 2 notes were 8 steps apart in an octave, the next 2, 5 steps. So we call it a fifth between the third partial or the third harmonic and the fourth one. The distance is a fourth, 4 steps. This is significant for us because the very first bits of harmony that we have in the written record of Western music, the harmony is based on fourths and fifths. The Kyrie by Guillaume de Machaut, that is part of today's listening work, uses this type of harmony using fourths and fifths. Intervals that are so basic, so physically like the basic note. Very consonant. They all have this basic relationship, physical relationship to one another that's very easy for us to perceive, so it's pleasant. So much so that when you study music theory, octaves, fifths, and fourths are called perfect intervals. If you go back now and have a quick listen to O Solis Ortus Cardine, you will hear very clearly the addition of a fifth and then a fourth on top of that, creating an octave. And at the end of the piece, it goes back to monophony once again. Do that for a moment and then check back in. So, as I mentioned, when you come back and listen to this piece by Guillaume de Machaut, this Kyrie, you will hear harmonic music, polyphonic music based on that system of harmony, based on fourths and fifths. Before going on, I want to spend just a few minutes with these terms from today's lecture notes. Cadence, point of repose at the end of a musical phrase. So when the music comes to an end and everything settles, the harmony, the melody, the rhythm, That's what we call a cadence. A Mass, I'm not going to read these descriptions to you. The Roman Catholic Mass is their basic service, and depending on how high or low the Roman Catholic Church is, some or all of it may actually be sung or chanted. Motet is another type of sacred or religious polyphonic, a cappella, no instruments, vocal composition, except it will be text taken from some source other than the Bible. That's what that means. Later on in the Renaissance, there's another really great sounding genre of polyphonic vocal music called the madrigal. It is secular music, in other words, non-religious music. Protestant Reformation, when we come along to that, at the beginning of the Renaissance, what happens over time as people have a little bit more free time to do various things like make music, write philosophy, create art, that sort of thing, they begin wondering whether they should just be following the dictates of the church without thinking about it, or maybe doing more thinking for themselves. One of the upshots of that is this Protestant Reformation. So at the end of the Baroque era, we have Johann Sebastian Bach writing his Rittercar that you heard at the first piece. He's writing for the Lutheran Church, not the Catholic Church. But that very involved polyphony that you heard in that Rittercar is the descendant of music like this. Imitative counterpoint is actually what the Rittercar is. It is what you heard in the Palestrina Kyrie from the late 16th century, where individual lines of music come in one after another using the same contour. The pitches go up and down at the same intervals and in the same rhythm. Ornamentation, we're going to talk more about this when we get to the Baroque era, just adding different notes, adding extra notes to an original melody. It's a way of improvising. And a consort is just a group of instruments that are of the same type. Now, just 2 or 3 generations after Guillaume de Machaut, late in the 14th century going into the 15th century, composers begin writing music based on different intervals. So the other piece I have in today's introductory notes that have the link to this video, the other piece that I'd like you to go back to before you get into the class material, is another Kyrie, another setting of that portion of the Mass, written by an English composer named John Dunstable. Now, we have gone from here, 1, to there, 2, 4, with 3 in between. We have our fourths and fifths. I add another octave, 1, 2, 4, 8. Now I need a 5, 6, and a 7 in between. Guess what? Those are the 5th, 6th, and 7th partials. Partials 5 and 6 make a major chord. So, along around this time, John Dunstable is among the first composers to begin writing music that has a harmony that's based on thirds. It's much easier to listen to. It doesn't have the same sort of dark, stark quality to it that the medieval music had, earlier medieval music had. And once people begin hearing music like this, it's preferred. So music begins to change significantly once this harmonic system based on thirds begins to take place. And that's the same kind of harmony that we listen to and enjoy nowadays. So, have a listen to the Dunstable piece, get a little comparative taste of what music based on thirds sounds like compared to music based on fourths and fifths. And if you go back and listen to the O Solis Ortus Cardine, then the Machaut piece, based on that same kind of harmony, then the Dunstable piece, and if you like, go back and listen to Palestrina and Bach again, you will see a very clear development of polyphonic music, a cappella polyphonic music, over a very long period of time. And writing music in this style is still something that serious composers need to learn how to do. So, to conclude, the music by Praetorius is not music for the church, it's secular music, it's dance music. Terpsichore is the Roman muse of the dance. You'll hear music based on thirds. and you'll hear a very unusual timbre, a very unusual sonority coming from this consort of crumhorns. There's a little explanatory music about these pieces at the beginning of today's lecture notes. You'll read about these composers in Chapter 9. The assignment is all here as usual. Textbook homework number 9, you'll have a week to do that, and non-text number 9, obviously due next Monday night as usual. Enjoy this music, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Thanks.